episode 386. Tonight I will be talking about AEW Dynamite. What was Tony Khan's important announcement? And the second episode of AEW All Access. Right here, right now, 360 Wrestling Fanatic. Welcome, Wrestling Fanatics, to a brand new episode of 360 Wrestling Fanatic. It's Wednesday night, and you know what that means. It is time to talk about a new episode of AEW Dynamite, and then the second episode, week 2 of AEW All Access. But first, let's get started with this episode, and let's talk AEW Dynamite on TBS for April 5th, 2023. Dynamite was live in Long Island, New York at the USB Arena. I think that's what it is. And commentators tonight, Tony Schiavone, Excalibur, and Taz, celebrating MJF Day in Long Island. But we start things off with a grudge match, or at least we thought we were. Absolute Ricky Starks taking on Juice Robinson. But before the match could even get started, we hear some familiar Bullet Club music, and it is the Switchblade Jay White appears and attacks Ricky Starks, a 2-on-1 beatdown. And next, the AEW Trios Championships are on the line. House of Black defending against Orange Cassidy and the Best Friends. And since we are in New York, the hometown of Trent Beretta, that means it's the return of Trent's mom, Sue, in the minivan, as we see in the back. As usual, when they're in New York, gives them a ride to the show. But unfortunately, Sue did not bring Best Friends and Orange Cassidy luck this time. The House of Black retained the Trios Championships when Buddy Matthews pins Chuck Taylor. The AEW Women's Championship is on the line. Riho challenging against Jamie Hayter. These two have a pretty good match here. It is Hayter getting the win with Haterade. And in the back, the Outcasts are interviewed by Renee Paquette, and Ruby Soho says that Hayter's days as champion are numbered. And Renee Paquette brings up that there's 3 of them and only 1 women's championship, but they pretty much say they will worry about that at another time. And now it is time for the hometown celebration, MJF Day. The AEW World Champion Maxwell Jacob Friedman has a band there, comes out, sings a couple songs. Pennies from Heaven was the name of one of them. And he gets in the ring, talks about a teacher of his, Mrs. Benedict, and says when he was in school, she used to kind of pick on him a little bit and asked where his mind was, and he said professional wrestling, and his dream was to be world champion. She said that was unlikely to happen. And when he's done in the ring, he goes back up the ramp, asks the crowd there in Long Island if they want an encore. And then all of a sudden we hear the drum cymbals hit, and it is Jungle Boy in the band. He attacks MJF. Since Long Island tonight, then that means MJF is the babyface, so they are booing Jungle Boy. And speaking of Jungle Boy, for the first time since Revolution, we see the man that he beat in the, I can't think of what it was called, but he buried him, Christian Cage, walking towards a red room, and then we see the return of Luchasaurus. Next up, I went a little out of order here, but right after the fight between Jungle Boy and MJF, we see Sammy Guevara come out and pick up the AEW World Championship, show it to Jungle Boy, and then hand it over back to MJF. And then Sammy is in action against Commander and gets the win here. Good match though. The FTW Championship is on the line. The cold-hearted, handsome devil Hook taking on All Ego Ethan Page. They're having a pretty good match. Page goes to grab the FTW title, but then Matt Hardy stops him and hits Page with the title. Hook locks in the Red Rum and gets the submission win to retain the championship. And Matt Hardy and Isaiah Cassidy leave with Hook. And now it is time for Tony Khan's important announcement. And he is backstage with Nigel McGuinness, who is now All Elite, has officially signed. In case you missed it, last Friday night, he showed up on Supercard of Honor and did the commentary along with Ian Riccaboni and Caprice Coleman. So I'm guessing that's going to be the commentary team for Ring of Honor going forward now. And he also, first he makes the announcement. He talks about the first All In, and he says that August 27th will be All In London, England. And to announce the location, he brings in Adam Cole. And August 27th, All In will be at Wembley Stadium in London, England, which of course for us wrestling fanatics, the site of SummerSlam 1992, the famous match Bret the Hitman Hart and the British Bulldog Davey Boy Smith for the Intercontinental Championship. And this will be, I'm sure, the biggest venue AEW has ran so far. I'm not sure yet. I don't think they've actually said if this is going. I'm guessing it would be live here in the United States, and I don't think it's going to be on a delay or anything, but which will be probably around 3 or 4 Eastern here in the United States. So I would say this is a pretty big announcement for AEW, the first time in England. I know that was announced last year that they were going to the UK. I thought maybe they would do an episode at Dynamite there, but big pay-per-view, and I wasn't expecting a venue as big as Wembley Stadium either. And the way Tony Khan built this up is it's going to be a really big show. And next up, we see the Blackpool Combat Club pretty much have a squash match. And then Bryan Danielson cuts a promo explaining his actions last week. Calls all the other AEW wrestlers amateurs, and himself, Jon Moxley, Claudio Castagnoli, and Wheeler Yuta are the only professionals in AEW. He says he loves them and they are his family, and nobody in the back knows what family is. And then we see Hangman Adam Page, and he makes his way to the ring, goes right after the BCC. But the numbers game is too much. Danielson mentions how nobody is coming out to help him. He says nobody love him, and then he gets a screwdriver. He talks about how he's been teaching his kids to fix things around the house, and he says he is going to fix the Hangman, so he takes the screwdriver to the face of Hangman Adam Page. And next, it is time for Dynamite main event tonight for the AEW World Tag Team Championships. Titles versus AEW careers. The Guns taking on FTR. The Guns have a new entrance and I think new theme music for this match, and they have a good match where I think they told a pretty good story where the Guns on multiple occasions were trying to get themselves disqualified so they could lose the match, but not the tag team titles. And at one point, referee Paul Turner actually does go to call for the bell, but Dax Harwood, it was Cash Wheeler, stopped him from calling for the DQ. And double sunset flips, double pins. FTR defeats the Guns to become the new AEW World Tag Team Champions. There's been a lot of talk lately about what was going to happen here in April when the contracts were up of FTR and AEW. So as of right now, FTR staying in AEW as the new World Tag Team Champions. And that was tonight's episode of AEW Dynamite. I thought it was a very good episode. I thought the announcement was a pretty good one, actually. Should be a pretty big show in August for All In. since it's their first show in England, and it being in a large venue like Wembley Stadium, I'm sure they're gonna want to have this one be stacked with a huge card to sell, and tickets, I should say, and maybe fill it up as much as they can. Hopefully AEW will be able to have a good crowd in Wembley Stadium. And right after Dynamite tonight was the second episode of AEW All Access, which taught some about Thunder Rosa and her injury when she had to give up the women's championship, and then when Jamie Hayter was crowned the interim women's champion. And then when she announced she had to give up the title permanently, and around Full Gear of last year, and Jamie Hayter became the official AEW Women's Champion. Also, Sammy and Ty Mello were focused on this one when Sammy and Bryan Danielson had the 2 out of 3 falls match, and it shows Sammy also go up to Eddie Kingston. The little beef that they had kind of smoothed things over, and we see some of the Young Bucks and talking about why they were gone. They, of course, didn't actually discuss what happened, the whole stuff with CM Punk and everything at All Out, but it's heading into their return at Full Gear. So that was week 2 of AEW All Access, and I'm enjoying it so far. Good episode. Definitely recommend watching it if you haven't checked it out yet. It's a good watch right after Dynamite goes off. And that's all for this episode of 360 Wrestling Fanatic. Thank you everyone for listening tonight. It is very much appreciated. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, you can email 360wrestlingpodcasts@gmail.com. Hope to have more episodes of 360 Wrestling Fanatic coming at you. Also, tomorrow morning we will return for the Thursday episode of Good Morning Wrestling Fans. So make sure you are right here on Spreaker or wherever you listen to 360 Wrestling Podcasts. But until next time, I am Lance, and I am a wrestling fanatic.